Hello and welcome to Buzz and Bark. And I think I am going to do a little bit of a sound healing. I'm not going to do Reiki today, but I'm going to talk about Reiki because Reiki is one of the gateways that led me to explore Buddhism. Because the founder of Reiki, Mikao Usui, was a Buddhist in Japan. He was a Zen Buddhist. And you may, if you're a follower of Reiki, you may have heard stories that, my hair is just acting crazy today. You may have heard stories that he was a Christian and that he traveled around the world and all this other stuff, and none of those stories are true. He was a Zen Buddhist, and he wanted to come up with a healing modality, and he had a vision, and this light came through him, and that's how he started working with the life force energy, which he called Reiki. And because there is a Buddhist component, it seems like a lot of people who learn Reiki end up eventually going into mindfulness, and then from mindfulness they end up taking that leap into Buddhism. And interestingly enough, as I've been on this track with Buddhism, thanks to Aloka, the dog, I came across this video of the Medicine Buddha. Now, I've heard of the Medicine Buddha before. He's the one that's painted blue, or he's made out of like lapis lazuli, which is let me show you some lapis lazuli. This color blue with those gold sparkles in it. And I actually have that here. Another really stone. I don't think it's associated with him particularly, but some of the statues are this color. But this is blue apatite. And the Medicine Buddha combines, it's like a fusion of some of the pagan healing traditions, such as with herbs. I did see some energy healing and, different things that we think of as New Age, or we think of that as complementary medicine. And it was in this video that I saw on the YouTube channel, Buddha's Wisdom, which I've been watching regularly because I've been learning a lot about Buddhism on that channel, and how Buddhism fuses really well with other spiritual and even religious traditions. That it's not set in stone, it's very fluid, but it is, some of the videos are too focused on enlightenment, and I'm not real concerned about becoming enlightened, because enlightenment, especially in the West, and especially in New Age, is turned into almost like a sporting event where people become very competitive in like who's more enlightened than who. And I don't think Buddha was ever being competitive, or setting up a model of being competitive. That's actually an ego trap. And when I see a lot of people in different spiritual communities and things, it's like the race to enlightenment. And the problem with that is that you miss everything along the journey. So it's like you're running a race rather than walking a journey. So you miss all the subtleties, and you miss all these moments of connecting, whether it's be with nature or with other humans, or of being of service. Because the service in a lot of these communities, and you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with animals? And I will get to that in a minute. It's no longer, it's like they're serving themselves. So they're serving themselves, and it becomes about, well, I can't have any of these negative vibes or these other things in my environment because it distracts me from being mindful. And I get that, I understand that. But then they want to also become enlightened, and I think all they have to do is meditate for many hours a day and go into this bliss state, if they can get into a bliss state, and then they're going to be enlightened. And then they go into groups and tell people that they're enlightened. Well, Buddha said that if you say that you're enlightened, you're not enlightened, because to become enlightened, it's almost like you're not there anymore, right? It's confusing because you exist and you don't exist at the same time. It's nothing, no one, nobody. Joe Dispenza has some meditations that focus on that and opening the pineal gland and having that transcendental experience, right? Which is what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is that sort of melding into nothingness, or if that's not even the right word, maybe it's emptiness, or melding, depending on what spiritual tradition, you can be melding into the creator, melding back in with the creator of all that is, right? That's more other spiritual traditions, not Buddhism. But enlightenment is the sense of losing your identity, or losing the things that you grasp onto. From my little understanding that I have of Buddhism, I'm just getting into it now, so I am hardly an expert, but I'm very excited and passionate about it. And I do notice some things that are just really ironic, is this race to enlightenment, and I would rather be part of this, to be of service, to be a healer, to spread compassion, and to heal myself and be kind and compassionate to myself, and then from that to become like a light, which I guess is in the light, which is kind of enlightenment, but it's not really, because you're not so focused on yourself. You're focused enough on yourself that you don't burn yourself out, and you practice self-care, but not so much on yourself that your whole quest in life is to become enlightened. Meanwhile, there's all this suffering that is going on around, and I don't think we can end suffering by totally focusing on our own spiritual journey and where we're heading, rather than being part of everything that is. And to be part of everything that is, there is a need to alleviate suffering, for yourself and others. And if you're not alleviating suffering for yourself, then are you, Buddhism has a lot of questions. Are you alleviating suffering for yourself, right? So, because we're going to suffer as long as everyone else is suffering. And we can't just go into a blissed out state, or, take plant medicines and psychedelics or whatever it is, and to go into this permanent bliss. There is no permanent bliss, unless maybe we're not in the physical body. But even I do spiritual mediumship, and so I talk to spirits on the other side, and people have this idea that when someone dies, even if they lived a wretched life, that they're going to be in peace, right? They're going to just go into this, they're going to leave their physical body and they're going to go into spirit, and they're suddenly going to be in peace. And it just doesn't work that way. Now, there are those experiences of the near-death experience where, the souls will go into the light and they'll have those experiences. But they're still going to have to go into a healing place on the other side if they decide to go to the other side. Now, with the near-death experiences, they go to the light, but then they come back to their physical body, and then they have to live out the rest of whatever their soul contract was in the physical body. And sometimes with that, they're able to find peace within the physical body, and then when they die, their physical death, where they don't come back again to the body, their final death, then they can be in peace. But if we don't live peacefully now in the physical body, if we don't practice mindfulness now in the physical body, then we're not going to suddenly go into a peaceful place just because we're no longer in our physical body. What we're going to do is we're going to wander around. We may go to healing temples on the other side, and I have spoken to many spirits who have done this. Many spirits, such as John Lennon, who had a brutal death. I haven't, spoken with anybody like Gandhi or any of the rest of them, but when you speak to a spirit that had a violent death, or a sudden death, or even a long illness that left them bitter, they don't just change because they're no longer in the physical body. And so that's why I find Buddhism really fascinating, because it recognizes that. It doesn't say, oh, if you live this life where you were grasping for things and you were totally in your ego and living from a place of fear, that you would, all of a sudden become enlightened or reach nirvana or whatever. You don't. And then there's the really more interesting, or the bodhisattvas or bodhisattvas, however you want to say it. They're the souls that do become enlightened, and then they return to the physical form, or they return to the physical form, or maybe from the other side, they come back into a form where they're serving others, right? So they reach enlightenment, but then they step down from enlightenment to help others. And they could come in the form of animals. So this is what I'm going to get to now, because I don't ever know where I get a topic, but I'm kind of channeling. I am channeling. And I don't really know where the topic's going to go, right? And I'm also, I don't know if I'm ADHD, but I do go off in tangents, and I think it probably disturbs some people. Well, and that's just how it is, because that's just how I am. So animals can come as bodhisattvas, or what we call in the West earth angels. And they're usually unusual animals. They're something almost supernatural about them. So one animal, as an example, was Secretariat. Now, Secretariat was an unusual horse because he had a heart that was, I think, at least 2 times the size of a normal horse. He had perfect proportions, and even his offspring, none of his offspring matched, because he was used for breeding purposes after he was done racing. None of them ever matched him, right? Because he was a bodhisattva. And he came to the planet during a time of a lot of tension, especially in the United States with the post-Vietnam War. The economy was bad. There was the war between, men and women, the war between the sexes or the genders. And there was a lot of stuff going on with the political, like Watergate, and, a lot of this stuff was either brewing below the surface or it was out in the open, and there was a lot of despair. And I grew up I'm 61, and so I was a child during the 1970s, and I do remember feeling all that tension. And at one point, and I don't know if this was the same time that that Secretariat won those races in 1973, but there was a oil embargo, or there was something going on, and I remember having to be in a hot car in the summer in a long line of cars because my mom had to get gas at the gas station. And so I do remember that the 70s was not a great time. So you may see like these videos on YouTube, nostalgia for the 1970s. No, the 1970s basically sucked, right? So here comes this horse to give people hope. And I think that's all he was meant to do, was to show people that you can do the impossible. And he was a very optimistic animal. He made us all feel more optimistic, all feel more hopeful. And it was pretty amazing. And then there will be some animals that will end up in movies, like, I don't know, Benji, or, and now we have Aloka. And so Aloka is the Buddhist dog, which he is a bodhisattva, and I mentioned that in my other videos. And he's helping people become more mindful. Now, yes, the monks are the human component who are teaching mindfulness, but the dog is also teaching mindfulness. But obviously he doesn't speak like in a language that we understand. He can speak through body language, through his actions, through his associations with the monks, through his energy. Like if you watch those videos of Aloka, do you feel your heart opening, right? Do you feel that? Because I can watch a lot of dog videos, and yes, I go, ah, and awe actually will open your heart, because awe is associated with the heart chakra. Like if you were doing some toning on your body, awe would be the heart. And so or oh, or ooh, these are all related to the chakras, but awe is the one that's related to the heart. And when you see a cute animal, what do you say? Or a cute baby, what do you say? You say, ah, right? And when you do that, you're opening your heart, even if it's just a little crack. So he's a heart opener, and many dogs are. And there's many dogs that have sacrificed their privacy and their autonomy by being in people's videos. And, you'll see like a YouTube channel with a particular dog, and people watch that channel because every time they watch that channel, it opens their heart. And so these dogs will act funny, they'll do goofy things, they'll do all these things that create floods of oxytocin in our brains. And so when I decided that I would, when I was training for Reiki originally, I was going to be a Reiki practitioner for humans. And then something clicked inside my head, and I had I was remembering my childhood, and I wanted to be a vet until I found out that I'd have to get worms out of dogs' butts, and that I have like a real phobia of worms. So, like squirmy things, I just can't handle it. And so at that point I realized I wasn't going to be a vet, but I still wanted to help animals. And so then I became an animal advocate when I was like 12. I went to the pound with another 12-year-old girl, and we protested outside the dog pound to save dogs. And so I tried to do that, as a teenager. Can't say I did a whole lot of, I used to call like numbers in my mom's address book of people trying to get them to go and adopt dogs. And, I don't think my mom ever knew that I did that. Well, somebody must have mentioned it to her. She never said anything to me about it. And it turns out later that I found out that my mom was giving a lot of money to animal rescue. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of sound healing, but I wanted to mention the medicine Buddha, and I wanted to mention Aloka, and I wanted to mention these earth angels in the form of animals, but also in the form of humans, because monks, especially the monks that were, walking for peace, not just this group of monks that we saw recently, if you've been watching that, the Walk for Peace, there have been other monks too that have done it in the United States and also in other places around the world. So this is not like a sudden event that's never happened before. It is something that if you have to see the bigger context of why it's happening, and to go watch videos on Buddhism, and the ones that focus more on the service, the compassion, the kindness, the peace, and the mindfulness. So even if you have no interest in Buddhism, mindfulness comes from Buddhism, and mindfulness is a practice that would help every single being on this planet, because it is about being present in the moment. And and we noticed this during the pandemic and COVID, when we are worrying and we're anxious and we're projecting into the future all this doom and this gloom and all these horrible things that are going to happen, or we're getting angry at something and we're looking for somebody to point the finger at and shame or blame, we're sending out discordant energies, because we are energetic fields. Like every single one of us is an energetic field. And this is what I learned with Reiki, but even before Reiki, I can feel energy. I can walk into a room and I can feel the energy in the room. And I have to say that second half of the lockdowns and COVID, before certain events happened, the energy in a room was just discordant, very damaging to the nervous system. I'm not a medical practitioner, but gosh, this is just so obvious. That energy affects the nervous system, which is why we have sound healing and sound therapy and music therapy, because we know that sound is a frequency, color is a frequency. We have frequencies everywhere. Everything is made from frequencies. And we focus so much on the physical form that we're not healing. We're not healing. And you look around the world at like the rates of diseases, and neurological diseases are just through the roof right now. Anxiety, depression, cognitive problems. These are all through the roof. Dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. A lot of I have the mast cell activation syndrome. So all of these are through the roof right now. And I feel like the only way we're really going to heal it is through frequency, and is through mindfulness, and is through being in the present moment and getting into the physical body and not being afraid to be in the physical body. Because as soon as we go bouncing off into the future, or we go floating back to the past, and when we can't forgive and we can't accept and we can't just be where we are right now, I notice that when I'm in those states of mind, I become anxious. And as soon as I become anxious, my body just starts freaking out. And I'm getting all kinds of like really unusual symptoms. And this is not uncommon. This is happening to a lot of people. Now, some people are calling this ascension symptoms, and I don't think these are ascension symptoms. I think what's going on is we've got so much stuff buried in us, so much pain from our ancestors, from ourselves, from our childhood. And we don't want to face whatever's attached to that. It could be shame, it could be fear, it could be guilt. And we don't want to face that. So what we do is we stuff it down into our physical bodies, and then our physical bodies will put pain out. And this is also in that book, The Body Keeps the Score. Like if you read that book, you'll find information on there, John Sarno's work. And when we do that, when we won't deal with our emotions, then what happens is, and it isn't just for us, because we're energetic fields, when we have pets, when we have animals, our energy fields are connected. And so when we're sick and when we're having this disease, as in not being in ease in the body, we are passing that on to everybody in our environment. And if we're worried about, like, you know, the physical viruses and the physical bacteria, we'll think about the energetic ones. And the energetic ones are so powerful that they can affect the weather. They can affect climate. They can affect earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. They can affect everything. And we think, well, I'm just one individual. I don't have that much effect on the world. But you do. And you have effect over your household. And you have effect over the animals in your environment. And they also are very powerful as well. So they can actually counterbalance a lot of what we put out. So you might be in a bad mood, and then you turn on a video and there's a loca, right? And all of a sudden you open your heart. You go, that's really cute. Or it might be, you know, Punch the Japanese monkey, who I would love to do an animal communication on, but I think he's too young. And we see that, and then we say, right? And we open our heart, and then we might start crying. Well, that's good. If you're watching a video and you're getting all teary and, you know, all this stuff is coming up, you know, get it out of your system. In fact, I'm going to be doing another short video, which I'm going to be doing for the Archangel Raphael community. I'm just going to put it there in their community, because I want to do something on some experiences I had recently with healing. But this, I'm not going to put it in this video. So if you want to bond with your pet, and if you want to bond with animals, they want you to heal yourself. They want you to go deep within those emotional, it's like trenches, right? It's like this lattice. There's like a web that's in people's bodies. And in this web, you know, like when you have a spider web and the flies go in there and they get caught in the sticky threads. Well, we've got all these emotions in our bodies, and they're caught in these sticky threads. And then you might want to also take your pet and yourself to a somatic healer, because those webs could be locked into your hips or your breast or your shoulders or your elbows or your ankles or some part of your body where you need to release that somatically. You need to get those tangled emotions, you know, you need to open up that web. And, you know, to clear it out, and then to bring in some good energy, right? If you're going to have a web, then just have the good energy in there, and not not all these things that will eventually trigger you. Because I think that when we get triggered, it's because we, you know, a trigger is actually a good thing. If we have the awareness, like, oh, I'm being triggered, you know, like you're in meditation and then something triggers you, because now you can release those sensations, you can release those energies from your body. And if you don't feel safe doing that on your own, then there are meditation teachers, again, somatic healers, there's all kinds of energy healers, there's shamans, there's so many healers out there that can hold that space, cognitive therapy, or, you know, different types of therapy, you know, the family constellation. Or the inner parts, you know, there's so many different ways to go into that web and to start releasing things, because the more you do that, the more human you will become. And I don't mean human in the negative sense of being violent and aggressive. I mean human in the more loving sense, the human being, not the human doing, you know, the beingness. And then when you can do that, you will meld with everything. So you could be in a forest and you're going to feel those trees, you're going to feel the ferns, you're going to feel the ground underneath you, right? And you're going to be able to communicate like as an animal communicator. And I really feel like that's where we're all heading. But we're not going to get there until we clean out these webs that are in our bodies. And there are energy healers, there are herbalists, there are all kinds of healers out there right now, and there's a lot of people training right now. We are not having a shortage of healers on the planet. There are so many people learning Reiki, there's so many people already mastering Reiki. And, and that could be for your pets as well as yourself. Okay, so that is my talk that I'm going to do. And again, this is like channeled. I don't know where it's going. I did grab some stones and some crystals. Actually, they call to me. So, if I say, okay, I'm going to do Reiki, and then my eyes will move over to wherever. I have them scattered around my space. And this one is, just one of my favorite stones. I always say that about all of my stones. This is a malachite chrysocolla. And this is a heart opener, right? This is another heart opener. This is a rhodonite in the shape of a heart. Again, this one is the blue apatite. Helps a lot with dizziness and vertigo, and very, very calming stone for the nervous system. This one's for the throat. This is amsonite. And it's a throat chakra balancing. I think it also works on the third eye. This is blue quartz, third eye, which is your pineal gland. And then I have the lapis lazuli because I'm going to bring in the energies of the medicine Buddha. And what I'm going to do is I have these crystals here, and their energies are going to be here, and I'm calling in, and I know the Buddhas don't really work with angels, but again, I do fusion. So I am calling in the archangels, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Metatron, and Sandalphon. And I've got them in the 6 directions, holding the space for healing and keeping all the unwanted energies out. And I've also got the Ascended Master, Saint Germain, and this violet flame that's going up. And this is more of a metaphysical sound healing. Even though my talk was about other things, this is actually just pure metaphysics. We're going to be working with energy. And I have the chimes for fire, air, water, and earth. And then I have the singing bowl. And I think in the future I'm going to use my voice more, because when I'm meditating and when I'm doing other things, I've been doing a lot of, I can actually make my voice sound like a didgeridoo. Don't ask me how I'm able to do that. I go into like a trance, and then all these voices will, really, some of the voices are really ethereal. These voices will just come through my body, like I'll just channel them. But I don't really feel like doing that right now, because I feel like it would be too hard on my body, because I'm feeling really exhausted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do sounds with the singing bowl, and then the chimes. And I'm setting the intention that this will bring us centeredness, that it will help us be more mindful, and that we be able to assimilate and digest all the information that just came through when I was doing the talking part of this video. So sit back, take a few deep breaths. And just release all the tension in your body. bringing some Native American elders in that, well, they're in spirit. There's one, he calls himself Soaring Eagle Flight. Or maybe I'm just putting in the word flight. Maybe it's just Soaring Eagle. And they're coming in to help us connect to the earth. And to also give respect to animals and all the creatures. Like I said, this is very metaphysical. Remember to breathe. Okay, I'm going to spray some rose water. To bring some sweetness in. It just makes me feel really good. Okay, so here's some blue apatite. This is for calming. Okay, so these are both for calming. Blue's my favorite color. This is for opening the throat so that you can express your creativity and be authentic. And so that your animals can... I feel really sad right now. I feel like a lot of dogs and cats feel very restricted in the throat. And hopefully this will open that up. And the reason why is because, well, animals want to express themselves. And, cats like to meow. And dogs like to bark and whine and do all the things that they do. And when we tell them to shut up or to be quiet, not to say that it can get really annoying, but when we tell animals to be quiet or to shut up, especially if we yell at them, we're blocking, we're doing this, we're strangling their throat chakra. Because now they can't express themselves. And you will get those animals, especially like dogs, like a shelter dog or something, and people will say, well, my dog never barks, my dog is so quiet, and then they'll think of that as a good thing. But what might be happening, and if they were to take the dog to an energy healer, they might find that this throat chakra, instead of being this beautiful blue, is black, or like some brown crusty looking color, or it's just not activated. And what's going to happen if this dog, and again, I'm not a medical expert, but what's going to happen with this dog who's not able to express themselves is they're going to get thyroid issues, or they're going to get throat issues, or they may get something even worse than that, or they may get problems with their shoulders, all this area around the throat, or maybe with their mouth or their teeth, or something of the throat chakra area. And they can also be out of balance where they're barking too much or meowing too much, and that also needs some kind of energetic rebalancing. Because if they're barking too much or meowing too much, or whatever noise an animal makes, bleating if it's a goat or whatever it is, they don't feel like they're getting enough attention, or they're not getting the right kind of attention, or they feel stifled, like they're not able to express themselves, so they have to do it in bursts. Or they don't feel connected. So they'll see other dogs walking down the street and they'll start barking nonstop because they see another dog walking down the street. Well, that's because they feel lonely and they feel disconnected. And I'm channeling, and I feel like if a dog isn't being able to go for a walk, or if they're going for a walk but they're not allowed to sniff anything, because a person's in a hurry, I got to go to work, come on, stop sniffing that. Inadvertently, what's happening is that dog's throat chakra is being closed, not to mention, I don't know what that noise is out there, sorry about that. Okay, it's just some guy on a motorcycle. Ignore it, I can't do anything about outside noise. So the chakras will start closing down. And the throat chakra is one of the middle chakras, the heart, the throat, and then you've got the third eye and the crown, and then you've got the root, the solar, the root, and all the ones on the bottom, the sacral. When you close down the throat, you've just blocked the dam. So you may be getting all the spiritual or any of this information coming from the creator or wherever. It's coming through here, and then it's stuck right here in the throat. And this can happen both to humans, and it can happen to animals as well, because animals also have a crown chakra, which means that they can get higher information. They have angels, they have guides, they have everything that we do as humans in a spiritual sense. They may even be in touch with other animals in spirit. And in fact, I think that they are. And also you're shutting off their telepathic abilities. So if you find that you have an animal that is overexpressing themselves or underexpressing themselves, please take that animal to an energy healer, and also take them to a vet, because when something's happening on the energetic body, it can manifest as physical diseases. And that's not, the physical diseases aren't what energy healers help with. They help with the energy body. So if you can catch something fast enough in the energy body before it manifests in the physical body, then you've just warded off a disease from occurring. And so it's really good to keep these energy centers open and moving and activated. And that's where Reiki comes in. And that's where pranic healing comes in. And that's where cranial sacral and acupuncture and all these different types of energy healing. And even shamans, because shamans work a little bit differently. They don't work so much with energy in the more neurological sense. They work with energy more in the spirit sense, if that makes any sense. So this is opening the heart. This is how we express, give, and receive love. And if we can't give or receive love or express love, then we need to open the heart chakra. Animals usually have an open heart chakra. Even if it closes temporarily, it opens again. They have very, very, very powerful hearts. Especially a horse like Secretariat. Okay, and I'm going to end with the lapis lazuli because, again, I'm pulling in that medicine Buddha energy. And maybe you can feel it in your body. And hopefully this is very relaxing for you and your pet. Okay, I'm going to end with some singing bowl or therapeutic bowl. And remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're still here with me. Some people might have clicked off by now. Just too bad for them because they just missed out on all of this. And tell your friends. Again, share this. I'm going to leave the link to my website, which is Metaphysics for Everyday Living, because I do a lot of other things besides animal communication and Reiki. And I also write some articles on there that might be helpful for you. And if you become a paid subscriber there, then you will actually get even more content and help to keep it going for everybody so that other people can have the free content, because that's how it works. So have a wonderful week with you and your pet bonding. And thank you for listening. Bye for now.